while since we got the Gunslinger skill set, and some of you may have been hearing more and more about the upcoming Dancer skill set, although the skill set may not be called that, similar to how the Gunner turned out to be the Gunslinger. It could just be the Performer or the Entertainer, or even simply Dancecraft, considering the way some of the skills are going to work, and that'll go alongside Songcraft. Either way, today we're going to do our usual dive into the Korean patch notes and take a look at what this skill set has to offer. Now, first of all, it states that this new skill set is based on Naima, I don't know how it's pronounced, and is a support skill set for all of you healers out there that want something new to play around with, and for everyone else that's just looking for ways to break the game. Now, before we break down each ability and the passive resources that the skill set uses, I want to go over a brief summary they give us of the skill set, just to give you all an idea of what we're working with here. They refer to the skill set as being more prominent in large-scale and small-scale wars than 1v1, and it's expected to have a great influence on the battlefield. There are abilities that can be focused on individuals and dance techniques that can give a wide area of effect to multiple people. Now, going off what I've seen from some of these abilities already, these will work very much like Songcraft songs, hence why I said it might even be called Dancecraft. However, they do then go on to mention the big weakness of the skill set, being that if you start dancing, you can't move, so you're exposed to enemies. And that goes on to say how this is in reference to Naima, or Naima, again, don't know how to pronounce it.
Naima
Sacrificed herself, which is really cool in concept, though it does seem like a massive weakness. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Alright, now then, let's actually get into it and look at some of these abilities. Again, these have been very roughly translated, so I'm going to have to do a little interpreting here just to try and figure it out. But starting off with the resources that you generate, you'll see you have two bars. You've got a red one, which we can assume is joy, and the blue one for sad or grief or sorrow. It refers to it as a bunch of things in the translation. I think sorrow is probably the best one, so that's what I'm going to refer to it as. It seems that you start off with both of these resources at 5, and these will go up or down depending on how you use your abilities. So if you use abilities to heal or buff allies, you gain 1 joy and then lose 1 sorrow. And if you use abilities to attack enemies, you lose 1 joy and gain 1 sorrow. So there is a bit of a balancing act. It also seems like once you max out one of these resources, you gain some sort of buff or state, potentially just meaning you can't lose one of the resources for an amount of time, or your next ability does more damage. I'm not actually sure, this one was a little hard to decipher, but what do these resources actually do? Well, Joy increases your healing skills, healing ability by 2%, and it reduces your healing skills damage by 2% for each Joy that you gain. Sorrow then has the opposite effect, with healing skills, healing ability being reduced by 2%, and skill damage increased by 2% for each sorrow that you gain. Now, if we assume 5 is the neutral starting position, that means you can get up to 10% increase or decrease in your healing or damage, depending on what resources you actually build. So it does make for a very interesting concept, as you'll have to think about what you want to maintain. Next, let's move on to the actual abilities of the skill set. Starting off with Dancer's Touch, Step 1. I'm not quite sure what the steps or stages in a lot of these abilities are in reference to. They might not mean anything at all, it might just be the translation. But anyway, it's a instant cast, it uses 43 mana, has a range of 25 meters, and a healing power of 38%. It essentially just heals allies and damages enemies, though if used on friendly targets, it uses 3 times the mana. It can't be used on yourself as well, which is a running theme for the Dancer skill set. A lot of these abilities are going to be purely to help allies. This ability also chains with another ability called Rapport. So if you use it on the target Rapport, you'll do 30% more damage or healing, depending on whether it's a friendly or enemy target. We will get to Rapport soon, as it seems to be the 4th skill in the skill set. Next up we have the first dance, the Welcome Dance. This uses 346 mana. It is an instant cast, has a 20 meter radius, and is reusable after 2 seconds. It lasts up to 10 seconds as well, and targets up to 30 enemies at once. Now, all the description here says is dance to see, welcome your enemies, which doesn't really tell me much, but it also mentions certain abilities such as stepping back, which we could maybe assume is shadow step, or even backdrop. It then mentions teleport and shadow brightness, which could be stealth, as well as mirror alter ego, which maybe means the mirror teleport. But I could maybe assume that this dance actually disables all of these abilities or prevents you from using these, which is very interesting. It does also say it disables enemies from targeting when using the ability, and you have pulling and pushing immunity, as you're not allowed to move when using dances. Whether this locks you in place or just moving cancels the effect, I'm not entirely sure. It also notes that using one dance disables the other, so you can't use multiple at once. What you can do, however, is combo them together, as Dancer Stillness seems to do with this dance. So using these in combination seems to debuff enemies and reduce their defense by 500 for 4 seconds, which is kind of big. It also seems like whenever you use any of the dances, if you use it in combination with an instrument, you take 10% less damage, which is also an interesting combination. Next up for the third ability, we have Advent, which seems like it might make killing mobs a bit more enjoyable for healers. This is one of the few abilities that you can actually use on yourself, and it costs 147 mana. It's an instant cast, it lasts for a minute and has a 30-second cooldown, but you can only use it on yourself. The description for this one is I received the energy of a god because for the duration of this ability, you have your maximum health increased by 1,500. The Dancer's Touch PvE skill damage is increased by 15%, and you get 15% damage reduction in PvE as well. So this is pretty big if you want to do PvE content as a healer on your own. The ability also combos with the occultism ability Pain Harvest to increase PvE skill damage by an additional 5% on top as well. Next up we have Rapport, which is another interesting ability. It's the one I mentioned previously. This costs 57 mana, it's an instant cast, has a range of 23 meters and a cooldown of 25 seconds. And if the target of Rapport goes out of range, the ability is just automatically cancelled. So using this on an ally reduces the duration of all debuffs by 5%, and using it on an enemy reduces the effectiveness of potions by 20%, which could just be poor translation. It may be all healing effects, but it also reduces flight speed by 20%, which probably refers to gliding as well. So it's a bit of a strange ability on its own, though it does combo with some of the other abilities to make it more effective. One of these abilities being our next one, Mental Shock. Now this one costs 91 mana, is an instant cast, has a range of 25 meters, and has a 4-second cooldown, which seems pretty strong. This ability can only be used on enemies and deals 2,360 to 2,407 base damage over 5 seconds. If used on the target of Rapport, it does an additional 50% damage, and it also combos with the Witchcraft ability Innovate for an additional 20% damage. It is one of the few straight up just damage dealing abilities that you get as the Dancer. Next we have God's Grace, which uses 328 mana, is an instant cast, has an effective range of 25 meters and a radius of 5 meters, meaning you'll have to be within 5 meters to get the effect maybe, and stay within 25 meters to get the full effect. This does have an 8-second cooldown and its healing power is 258%, so it's a big heal. The way it works this, it sounds as though this will only work on party members and will instantly heal for a base of 3,703 and an additional 5,290 over a set amount of time, which you'll only get if you stay within the 25 meters. This also only affects up to 8 raid members at once. This ability also combos with Rapport, so when you heal the target of Rapport, you'll have the cooldown of God's Grace reduced to 4 seconds, making it ideal to stay close to the person you're pocket healing when using this ability. Next we have an ability that will probably make it easier to stay close to your target. We have Sympathetic Movement, which uses 45 mana, is an instant cast, has a range of 30 meters, and a cooldown of 35 seconds. This seems to work just like Shadow Step, but for healers, so you can have those My Heart Will Go On moments and save your friends. The only difference is if used on a friendly target, you move to their back, and if used on an enemy, you move in front of them. This also combos with Conversion Shield from the Oromancy skill set to give you an additional 5% recovery, and it also combos with Rapport, reducing the cooldown of Sympathetic Movement by 50% if used on the target of Rapport. So again, you're staying close to the person you want to pocket heal. Next we have our second dance, which I mentioned earlier, the Dancer Stillness. This costs 375 mana, is instant cast, has a range of 20 meters and a cooldown of 2 seconds while lasting up to 10 seconds. Now, while the Welcome Dance seemed to disable enemies from using certain abilities, the Dance of Stillness seems to make allies immune to certain effects, such as Silence, Physical Technology Blockade, Provocation, and Atrophic State Abnormalities. Now, I've no idea what some of those are meant to translate to, but being able to make your allies immune to certain debuffs, such as Silence, seems incredibly strong, making dancers a massive target in these big scale PvP battles. This ability does seem to only affect allies and not the caster though, so they can be jumped on and silenced. This dance also seems to combo with the next dance we're going to look at, but I couldn't quite figure out what the combination does. But you'll notice a trend in that all the dances seem to combo with another dance, so you're meant to like move between each of them. So let's take a look at the next dance, the Edge of Hope, or Dance of Repentance. This dance costs 357 mana to cast. It's an instant cast, has a radius of 30 meters, and a cooldown of 2 seconds with a healing power percent of 258. This lasts for 10 seconds and will restore 3,611 health to 8 allies at random within the 30 meter radius, ignoring players with full health. It does mention 5 meters here as well, which perhaps just means that if you're within 5 meters, you'll be pretty much guaranteed to get the heal. I'm not exactly sure. This dance combos with the next dance, the Dance of Weakening, so if used 4 seconds after the Dance of Weakening, you'll also heal for an additional 20%. Now, as for the Dance of Weakening, it uses 368 mana, is instant cast, has a radius of 20 meters, a cooldown of 2 seconds, and lasts for 10 seconds. This dance pretty much does what it says on the tin. It weakens up to 30 enemies within 20 meters by 20%. Now, it doesn't specify here what it weakens, but when comboed with the Welcome Dance, it adds an additional 30% reduction in target's healing rate, so we can presume weakening just means the effectiveness of heals is comboed together, so it reduces heals effectiveness by 50%. Next we have Maximizing Rapport, which uses 197 mana, is instant cast, has a 20-second cooldown, and effective range of 10 meters. This one only lasts 5 seconds, but if you use it on an ally, it makes them immune to all debuffs for the 5 seconds. And if you used on an enemy, it says days not available and potions not available. So we can assume they're unable to be healed for the duration. Again, much like the normal Rapport, if your target leaves the 10 meters, the effect is also cancelled. This ability also combos with Shadowplay's Throw Dagger. How though, I'm not sure, as all it says is to the enemy and Rainwater, which doesn't give me very much to go off. Last but not least, we have the 5th and final dance, what may be the craziest ability, following the theme of Naima, I don't know how it's pronounced, the Dance of Sacrifice. This costs 563 mana, is an instant cast, has a 30 meter radius, and a cooldown of 15 seconds while lasting 10 seconds. This ability increases the amount of damage taken by up to 30 enemies by 20%, while also buffing allies at the same time. Now, the buff that it gives to allies, it just says state of not dying, which makes me think allies are maybe not able to die if they're protected by this, which sounds crazy, but it may be a case of they get to just 1 HP and they can't go below that while this effect is on them. Again, making the dancer a very big target, but there are massive consequences for using this as well, as you consume 20% health every second for using this ability, meaning it'll kill the caster in 5 seconds if they're not healed, which I don't know if you can be healed while using this, but we'll just have to see. Now, you can combo this with playing an instrument like the other dancers to reduce damage received by 10%, as well as Toughen from the defense skill set to reduce the amount of damage you take per second to either 5% health, or it may just subtract the 5%, meaning you consume 15% health a second instead. Either way, this seems like a rather crazy ability that very much is in the spirit of again, can't pronounce the name. And that is it for all the abilities that I could see here. No safety dance, sadly. I also couldn't see the passives as of the moment, but when the dancer, dancecraft, performer, entertainer, whatever the skill set ends up being called, comes out, I'm definitely going to revisit it and go over each of the skills. I think we can probably expect to see an announcement about the skill set in this month or the next, and then a release of the skill set in the following weeks. It is likely to be another paid DLC, much like the Gunslinger DLC, but I can't say for certain, and I won't talk on it much more until we actually get the news on it. But that is it for this video. I wanted to try and keep it as focused as possible on the dancer, so hopefully you all enjoyed it, and if you did, do leave a like. Even subscribe, it is much appreciated. I'm making it my goal to try and hit 1k subscribers. I don't know, that's like a personal goal for me. But feel free to let me know what you guys think of the upcoming skill set in the comments down below, or you can discuss it over on our Discord, or even hop over on Twitch. I'm live over there sometimes. Come hang out, let me know what you think. But yeah, thank you for watching all, and I will see you all in the next video.